You're eating less than you used to. You're sure you're in a deficit, yet the scale isn't moving. And everyone's telling you to eat even less or to try fasting. And that's the wrong direction. And it comes down to a concept called energy flux, which explains more about why belly fat stops responding than any calorie calculator you've used could. My name's Adam. I'm a performance nutritionist, and I've helped over 300 men lose their belly fat over the last 10 years. And I've seen all the patterns, especially the ones that show up when you're putting in the effort. Mark came to me after 8 months of eating 1,600 calories a day. He lost a decent amount of weight in the first few months, but then nothing. Cut a bit more, still nothing. By the time we spoke, he was exhausted, frustrated, and convinced there was something wrong with him. And nothing was wrong with him. His body had just adjusted to exactly what he was doing. And the reason comes down to something most fat loss content never touches on. Energy flux is a total volume of calories moving through your body, how much you're eating and burning at the same time, not your deficit, the throughput. Two people can run the exact same 500 calorie deficit and get completely different results. Person one is eating 2,800 and burning 3,300. Person two is eating 1,600 and barely leaving the house. Same deficit on paper, but a completely different physiology underneath it. In the high flux scenario, resting fat oxidation, so the amount of fat you're burning, is significantly higher. Hunger is lower, the metabolic rate holds up. The body is processing fuel. And now the low flux version, the body starts adapting to survive. Neat. All your movement, like you do outside formal exercise, drops off quietly. You fidget less, sit more, you take the lift instead of the stairs. You don't decide to just do any of that. It just happens. And it can knock off hundreds of calories you burn a day without even realizing it. The deficit Mark thought he was in and running had effectively closed. Not because his metabolism was broken and not because of starvation mode that just doesn't exist. Because his body stopped moving as much in response to eating less. And eating less without moving more is a slippery slope. Chris used to tell me he was doing everything right, hitting his calories Monday through Friday, gym 4 times a week, and still nothing was moving. What he hadn't accounted for, what was quietly happening to his body in the background, like every single day to compensate. The drop in NEAT isn't random. There's a specific mechanism behind it. A large study, 332 people across 5 different populations, found that total daily expenditure didn't increase in proportion to physical activity in the way you'd expect. At moderate and higher activity levels, expenditure plateaued. The body started compensating elsewhere to keep its total output within a narrower range. Researchers call this the constrained energy expenditure model. And what makes this direct to someone in a calorie deficit is what a separate study found. For people actively losing weight, total energy expenditure stayed flat even as physical activity increased. The body was pulling back on other outputs to absorb the extra movement. And NEAT is the first thing it pulls back on. Research shows that NEAT varies by up to 2,000 calories per day between people of similar size. It's the most variable component of your total calorie burn, and it's the most responsive to restriction. And studies show that NEAT suppression occurs in the majority of diet-only interventions. The drop can be anywhere from 100 to 400 calories a day, and that happens quietly, without you even noticing. Chris wasn't lazy and he wasn't undisciplined. His body simply contracted around a low flux environment, and the deficit he thought he was running was largely theory. I hear this from men every single day. They're losing weight. Clothes are getting looser and their face is getting leaner, but the belly is the thing that they want gone the most. It just barely seems to shift. And in 2024 and 2025, I competed in a physique competition. 2024, 6%, well, I got down to, and 2025, around 8% body fat. And it took months of structured dieting. And I can tell you from personal experience, whatever I did, the last place to lean out was my midsection. It wasn't the chest or the arms or anything else, it was the belly. And there's a clear physiological reason for that. And it's not cortisol. Fat storage patterns are largely genetic. Where your body holds fat last and loses it last is mostly set before you even started dieting or walked into the gym. For most men, that's the abdomen. And that's not a willpower problem, and it's not a training problem. It's just the order your body follows. But here's what most people don't know though. There are actually two types of fat around the belly. Visceral fat, the deep fat packed around the organs, and subcutaneous fat, that's the stuff you can actually pinch. The research is consistent on this. Visceral fat is lost preferentially with weight loss. It responds first. It's the subcutaneous belly fat, the layer you can actually see and pinch. That's the last to go because it's the more stubborn depot genetically. So when men tell me their belly fat is barely moving, what's often happening isn't a problem with insulin or cortisol. It's the more dangerous fat around the organs that is already coming down, which is a good thing, but they just can't see it. And what they're looking at is the pinchable layer that's last in the queue. That's why your waist measurement can be down, but you can still pinch the same amount of body fat there. There's no supplement for this. No specific exercise protocol or anything that targets it. And definitely no hack that changes the order your body follows. The only thing that moves subcutaneous belly fat is getting lean enough overall that the body has no choice but to finally pull from it. Which means men closest to their breakthrough are often the ones convinced they're stuck. Paul had been tracking his food for months when we started working together. He was meticulous during the week, logged everything, even his vegetables. But when I asked him to walk me through a typical weekend, or a typical Saturday even, to start with, the story changed. It was a couple of drinks, a takeaway, he eyeballed, didn't weigh anything, didn't even weigh himself. But then Sunday ended up half logged, just because it felt like a lighter day. He had mainly salads and soups, he would tell me. The week looked good, but the numbers didn't add up. And studies comparing self-reported food intake against objective measures of energy expenditure consistently found that people underreported by 15 to 30% on average. That's not just a rounding error. That's huge. At 2,000 calories, let's say a 20% underreport is around 400 calories. Well, it is 400 calories. That could be your deficit completely wiped out. And the people that are most likely to underreport are the people who need the most accurate data, those carrying excess body fat and those who've been dieting for a while. And Paul was both. The error isn't deliberate. It's just a structural error. And it comes from three places I see consistently. The first is the week versus the weekend split. Research tracking self-monitoring in weight loss programs found that dietary adherence was lowest and caloric intake was highest from Thursday through to Sunday. And most people track well Monday to Wednesday. But then the structure just loosens. They have a drink on Thursday, maybe a couple of drinks on Friday, larger meals on Saturday, and Sunday just becomes mostly unlogged. It can be a feeling of like guilt and just trying to correct what's happened on the weekend. And none of this feels like breaking the actual diet because they put the work in. But the scale is usually up and it registers the drift. But the second is repeating meals with drifting portions. You get comfortable eating the same things, which is fine, but you might have weighed the oats in week 1. And now, by week 4, you're pouring it in, just eyeballing it. Research on visual portion estimation shows errors of 20 to 30%, even from people who know exactly what the portion looks like. The bowl is the same, or they think so, but it isn't. This happens with rice, pasta, protein, oil, and obviously oil can be the worst because even a few grams, well, a few extra grams a day compounds faster than people expect. But the third is over relying on calorie databases and AI tools to estimate rather than actually measuring. These tools aren't useless. When you're eating out and you can't weigh anything, they're exactly what you should be using to guesstimate. But when you're cooking at home and you're entering a generic database entry instead of actually weighing your food, you're just guessing. AI recognition tools evaluated against weighed food records showed mean errors of around 35% or for weight estimation. So you can't build a precise deficit on a guess, especially if it's that off. The fix is a lot simpler as well than most people want it to be. Weigh what you cook. Weigh it before you cook it. Log it before you eat it, not from memory at the end of the day. That just won't hold up. Hold Saturday to the same standard as Tuesday. James had been dieting for 6 months when we spoke. He hadn't cheated, hadn't quit. He was genuinely committed to the process. But the longer the diet went on, the harder it got. And this wasn't because of willpower like some people think it is. He was just hungry consistently in a way that he hadn't been at the start. And that's nothing to do with him as a person. That's physiology. As you lose weight, appetite rises, hunger hormones increase, satiety signals weaken. Your body's drive to restore the weight lost is powerful, it's persistent, and it's largely unconscious. And research puts the appetite-driven increase at around 50 calories extra per day for each pound lost. That's roughly 3 times larger than the metabolic slowdown itself, which means the primary reason your deficit closes over time isn't your metabolism grinding to a halt. It's that you've quietly started eating more, a bit more at dinner, the rest of your kids' leftovers, an extra snack that didn't used to be there, slightly larger portions across the week. None of it feels like a major deviation, but all of it adds up, even if it's healthy food. Doesn't matter. This is where low flux dieting makes everything worse. Eating very little without keeping activity high doesn't just suppress need, it amplifies hunger. It makes the deficit harder to defend day to day. And that's not me telling you to just try and out exercise, what you're eating, by no means. But the clients I've seen who've been sitting at 1,200 to 1,600 calories for months are usually the most food preoccupied. They're the most likely to have an uncontrolled weekend and the most frustrated when it comes to results that don't match their effort. You can rely on diet alone, but again, it's a slippery slope. High flux eating, so more food, more movement, doesn't remove your appetite, but it gives you room to manage it. You're eating enough that hunger stays within a workable range, but you're moving enough that your output stays elevated. The deficit is real because both sides of the equation are working in your favor. Richard came to me having tried everything, multiple attempts, multiple stalls, the same pattern every time. He'd restrict hard, lose a bit, he'd plateau, then he'd restrict harder and then he'd plateau again. Diet was 70% of the battle, he'd read. So he kept making that 70% more intense, harder. But why would you make the hardest part harder than it needs to be? If you're eating less and not losing belly fat, 3 things are likely working against you. Your NEAT has compressed because your energy throughput is too low. Your tracking has more gaps in it than you think, which is probably the most likely one. Or your appetite has quietly pushed up your intake over time without you even realizing it. But it's usually some combination of the 3. The solution isn't to eat less, it's to raise your floor. That means deliberate daily movement. You move as much as you can. Not just more gym sessions. If you're not doing any gym sessions, definitely do some gym sessions, but consistent low intensity output throughout the day. Walking is the most underrated fat loss tool I know. Literally 8 to 12,000 steps a day protects your NEAT, keeps your energy throughput high, and makes the deficit work the way it was intended to. It means tightening your tracking too without obsessing over it. Weigh your food, log it before you eat it. Hold Saturday to the same standard as Tuesday. And it means eating enough to sustain the process. A 15 to 25% deficit from a reasonable maintenance. You can work that out below using my free fat loss calculator. That will keep hunger more manageable. It also helps keep NEAT from collapsing. And it gives the process somewhere to go when progress stalls, because you have room to reduce rather than nowhere left to cut. The men I've worked with who lose fat and keep it off aren't the ones who suffered the most on the way down. They're the ones who set up the system where their body wasn't fighting them every day to undo it. That's what energy flux means in practice. It's not a complicated protocol, but just enough fuel moving through the system that the body has no reason to just shut down. And if this is where you're stuck right now, you're eating less, but your belly fat is not moving, look at your movement, assess your tracking, and stop trying to make things even harder for yourself. And if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and watch this one next. I'll see you there.